One thing that is consistent though is I'm constantly spilling water on my right side. And I don't know why. But alright. What's up, duelists? So, as you all know, do Edison content. And here is an Edison tier list of a lot of the top decks, as well as a few that, you know, pretty control. So we got our categories. We got the decks to beat, which is like the decks that you're almost always going to see in events. Decks that are almost always going to be topping, and you should definitely be formatting your deck and your side deck for. You got contenders. These are decks that, again, you're going to see at events. Probably not as frequent as the decks to beat, but you will see them quite a bit. And they're decks that very easily could become the decks to beat as well. It's just, they're just a little bit, probably just a little bit more tweaking needed. Then we got needs a good pilot. So there are a lot of decks that do require a good pilot for it to be good. One of them being Quickdraw, which is the one that I play a lot, and a few others, just because you gotta know the tempo of the game very, very well to go ahead and use them, and to use them effectively. We got your trolling. This is where you're just rolling up to the event with like a deck you built online. And you're like, this looks like it'll be fun, and I think this could maybe steal a couple games here and there. And then we got the are you serious? Because you should not be bringing these to an event unless like you're going to a locals, you and your buddies, and you guys have all come to the consensus of we're just gonna bring some jank shit. All right. Now that I'm thinking about this, there are some decks that I forgot to put on this list, but I'll go ahead and mention them after the fact. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the video. Before we jump into it, before we do, I do got to remind you guys that the RBET Moreno Valley is happening this Saturday, the 19th of August. And if you guys don't know about it yet, I will put up the information here on the screen. Go ahead and scan the QR code, or I believe I'll put some information down in the description below about the event and where you can sign up for it. It is an in-person event in California, Moreno Valley. All right. I probably should have said that back. I probably should have said it the other way. Moreno Valley, California. But if you guys are looking for a top-tier Edison event, where you can quite possibly win a prize card, a dark end prize card, and compete with probably some of the biggest names in the Edison community right now, I would definitely recommend you guys go ahead and check it out and come on by. Now, let's get into the video. So, we're starting off with Amarillys Turbo. We've all seen this. What was it? I believe at the YCS, where there was someone that took it to top 8. I believe it was either top 8 or top 4. I believe it was top 4, if I'm correct. This is a deck that requires a very, very good pilot. All right, especially now that people have seen it, they know that it can top. People are gonna have like DD Crow is gonna be a little bit more of a priority in people's side decks. Now that this deck is very much on the radar. It was on the not really on the radar before. It was kind of like a deck that people thought about, but no one really considered. Now it's a deck that people actually consider. So now it's a deck that, now that it's a deck that people consider, you're gonna at least have like a little bit of that mental thought process of how you're gonna beat it. DD Crow does that very well. So it's gonna require a good pilot and probably some good side decking as well, so that way you can go ahead and compete with it and maybe even top with it like it did at the YCS. Just regular Christia. All right, actually, did I put the, wait, hold on, before, did I put it? Okay, I did put it over here. Okay, so I think regular Christia, not Christia Turbo, none of that. Okay, I think I'm just gonna put it in contender. All right, You know, honestly, I think a lot of the Christia decks are just going to go in contenders just because Christia is an absolute powerhouse of a card. I want to put this one in Needs a Good Pilot because I think the turbo version is actually quite a bit better. But yeah, I think I'm just going to leave this one in contenders. I know a lot of people that play this deck. It's even in like the base form deck, not even the turbo deck. It's very annoying because they can go ahead and get a lot of crashes in with what is it? I forget one of them, but I know one of them's Ain't Shining Angel, and I forget what the other fairy is that people normally crash into your monsters with to go ahead and set up their graveyard. I'll pull it up on the screen if I can find it, but because of that, the deck's really, really good. Just getting Christia out tends to win most games if they don't have an out for it immediately. And since we've already covered one, let's go ahead and go into the next one. Christia, or what is it? Chaos Christia. I think this one is actually needs a good pilot, I think. Mainly just because the fairy count does come down quite a bit. You can play Heralds, but you can't really play Herald as freely as you would kind of want to because you are running quite a bit of darks, so that we can go ahead and facilitate the chaos package. And that can kind of put you in wonky spots here and there whenever you're trying to set up your graveyard. So instead of like the regular Christia deck where you can set it up pretty easily, this one, like if you want to go for a chaos play or you want to go for like a dark arm play or something like that, you do kind of need to like set up two different engines, which is still, the deck is very good, but I do think it actually takes a pretty decent pilot to go ahead and use it to its full potential. Now, no shocker here, I don't think, for anyone. One of the decks to beat is Christia Turbo. Because I can't tell you how many times, especially as a Quickdraw player, where even as a Wella dad player, where they'll just get Christia out on the board like turn 2, and then I'm like, all right, well, I gotta scoop, or I'll play like one more turn, I'll draw a card, and I'm like, well, that doesn't out it, so I think I just lose, and then they'll just bum rush me in the next turn, and then that's it. So that's one of the main reasons why I think this deck is one of the decks to beat. It's definitely a deck that everyone's going to be playing. I definitely do expect to see it at RBET this weekend. Hopefully I can dodge a lot of these matchups versus it, or else I'm really going to hope that I draw my side deck properly enough so I can go ahead and deal with it and sneak some games away. And since we're on the topic of fairies, we're just going to go ahead and put fairies right there in his contenders. All right. Same thing with the Christia deck. Fairies is just too fucking good. It's just oppressive. Herald of Orange Light is an absolute powerhouse of a card. You also got, what is it, Herald of Purple Light, one that I believe Keegan E3 has been using quite a bit, as well as quite a few other people. On top of the fact that Honest is still a card, and I mean Honest is a card in all 4 of these decks, which just makes it very much hard to deal with if you don't run any way to interact with Honest, which, you know, most people don't. So, very fun. It's a deck that I almost always expect to see very, very frequently. And, yeah. Yeah, gotta love fairies. All right, gotta love fairies. All right, next deck. GBs. Now, I personally have a lot of hatred for this deck. All right. Once again, as a Quickdraw player, GB's kind of shits on my deck very much because my I run a lot of monster effects, and Chariot is a one hell of a card. However, at least at this current point in time, I think it's your trolling deck. All right, it's a deck you can definitely roll up to. Like, you can build it online, you can roll up to an event, and you can do very well with it, I believe. But outside of the first 2, depending on how many people you have at your event, all right, let's just say you have 12 people at your locals. What is that? I believe that's a 4. What is that? 4 rounds, I believe it is. So it's very easily that you could probably win your first round if you get like a good pairing. Maybe even your second, but coming to 3rd and 4th round, there's a good shot you're not making it, because those decks are definitely going to outpace this deck a lot, and it's just not going to end well. And then, cool, congratulations, you showed up, but you probably got stomped in your last 2 games, which probably was not a lot of fun. So I would probably recommend staying away from GBs unless you're just going to go, especially unless like your local is just a bunch of noob Edison players. You can probably then this deck easily becomes a deck to beat. Only if your Edison and locals is just littered with people that don't really know what they're doing, or that are not like tuned in to the format. On that point, yeah, just run GBs. You're gonna stomp everyone, and you're just gonna win a lot of pricing. Congratulations. So, off of that, we're gonna go into Blackwings, pure Blackwings, contenders. All right, possibly even like the top of the contenders, just because it's like Blackwings is easily one of the most consistent decks in the format. Like outside of, I believe, Hero Beat, it's one of the most consistent. And their ability to just put up big damage out of pretty much nowhere, or not even out of nowhere, just consistently. The recursion, the searching, Kaloot's also one hell of a card to just go ahead and be like, okay, I'll go ahead and have this summon. You think you're going to clear it? I'm going to Kaloot you, I'm going to win. And then the game's going to snowball from there. So, not really much to say about Blackwings. It's been at the top. It'll continue to be at the top just because it's the most consistent. Now, from there, we're just going to go ahead and throw Value Turbo, deck to beat. It's I mean, it kind of just is what it is. And, you know, along with that, we're just going to go ahead and throw, I think I'll go ahead and put the Grepher Turbo, or not, but Value Turbo with Grepher over the one with YGO, just because the one with YGO is a little bit slower. And, I mean, it does have, like, outs. It does have natural outs to, like, the one big weakness for these decks, which is, what is it, Shining. The little ball, all right? I'll throw it up on the screen. The ball, all right? We all know the 1-star ball that says you can't play dark monsters, all right? And then also it doesn't lose to a Shadow Imprisoning Mare. So that's the natural benefit of this. However, I do think the one with Grepher is a little bit better just because you're able to get out monsters a lot quickly. I mean, just being able to normal summon Grepher, pitch, and then you have a 2400 damage on the board. 2400 damage, synchro on the board, and then you can go ahead and just start beating it for damage. Like, what's terrible about that? Nothing. All right. And it doesn't lose to oppression either. So congratulations. You're every other deck loses to oppression. Value Turbo decks don't, which is dumb. So both of these are decks to beat. All right. Regular Blackwings is down here because it does lose consistently to these, as well as I believe the pure Blackwings also has a very difficult time with Hero Beat. So there is that. And then moving on from there, we're going to go to Dragons. I believe this is Dragons, if I'm correct, because I have one for Dragon Turbo, correct? Did I not make that one? Oh no. Oh no, I did. Okay, so yeah. Dragons. So like in my head, this deck is a contender. And I know a lot of people that run it. And it's a very good deck. But it's very susceptible to like just losing out of nowhere. So I'm going to say it needs a good pilot. All right. It needs a good pilot. I think it's going to be at the top of needs a good pilot. And it's very much borderline to contender. Just from like personal experience of playing against the deck, that like just because a lot of these decks also run DD Warrior Lady. All right. They run DD Warrior Lady as a very natural out to a lot of dumb shit that people run. And once I have like a read on like one of those, like one of the set monsters that I normally put down as being a DD Warrior Lady, I'll tend to try and destroy it and not banish it, or I'll try and get it in the graveyard in some way or another. And then getting that in the graveyard just completely shuts down their totem dragon, because they can't even use it anymore. Their whole graveyard has to be dragons. So I'm gonna put it. It needs a good pilot as well, for that reason alone. On top of it, has some very bricky hands that you really need to be very creative of how you use them to get out of it and find yourself in an advantageous position. From here, we're gonna go ahead and go to Dragon Turbo. You're trolling. All right, this deck's good. All right, it's great, but it essentially you're playing solitaire in the hopes that you're able to draw the cards that you need to draw. All right, that's really it. And if you don't, you pretty much lose. All right, like it's just done right then and there. And I feel like it has way brickier hands than it does with just regular dragons. All right, so we're gonna go and put that in your trolling, and we're just gonna go ahead and move on. Now we're gonna go hit 3 Diva decks. All right, we're gonna have Diva Frogs, Contender. We're gonna go Diva Hero, decks to beat, Diva Zombies, deck to beat. All right. I think it's very self-explanatory for like the reasons why I put them where they are. Diva Frogs. It's just all you're doing is putting Diva into the Frog Monarch deck, and I mean, the Frog Monarch deck is already contender as it is, so we'll go ahead and put this in here as well. Like, it's a contending deck. Both of these are contending deck. Like, just the Frog Monarch decks alone are very, very good decks that are contenders, and they can very easily become the decks to beat. These decks very fluctuate between decks to beat to contenders constantly. It's an ebb and flow, like the way Edison format is. But like, this is the one deck that's always just rising, falling, rising, falling, rising, falling. At least in my opinion and a few other people's opinions. The only benefit you have with throwing the Diva in there is that now you're able to get like synchro 8s. You're able to convert a little bit better off of your what is the card? Enemy controllers. You can go ahead and take their cards and then synchro with their cards, and it just, it's a nice package to have in there to just go ahead and abuse your opponent. That's why I'll put it a little bit over Frogs. But even still, like, both these decks, absolutely fantastic. I love them both. I was playing Diva Frogs for a bit until I eventually moved over to Quickdraw. And then we got these two. We got Diva Zombies and a Diva Hero. We've all seen Brendan Fraser's list. I mean, I still don't understand that deck. I really don't. Like, I look at it, I've played it, and I guess I just don't have the mental capacity to go ahead and perform well with it. But it tops. It constantly tops. So this is another deck that I played for a bit, was Diva Hero, and it was a shit ton of fun. I would like just steal games randomly out of nowhere. I think even when I first started playing it, I put Super Polys into the side because I was also playing against a lot of hero beats, and being able to just, they go draw phase, stand my phase, main phase. I'll have the set Super Poly. They'll like try and Gemini Spark it, or they'll try and like MST it, and then I'll just be like, chain it, and then plus them like amazingly off their monsters, or go ahead and just get a full board wipe, because then they would bring out Absolute, and then I would just go ahead and Super Poly, wipe the board completely, and then would be in open game state, which for Frogs is absolutely disgusting, because that's kind of what you want, because then you can just go ahead and constantly just apply more pressure and pressure and pressure. And then for Diva Zombies, it's zombies that are already pretty consistent of being able to just go ahead and just OTK you out of nowhere, with like the 2 Divas in there just giving you the little added synchro potential outside of Plague Spreader Zombie. I mean, there's not really much to say. It's nice, it's good, it's consistent, it's better than zombies, which zombies we're going to go ahead and put I'm gonna put this actually needs a good pilot. All right. I think zombies without the Diva package needs a very good pilot. And I've seen a lot of people struggle because they don't really know when to use certain cards in the deck at the most opportune time. I believe, what is it? Oh man, I think I'm one of the guys from Card Addiction, one of the top guys there, Lee. I want to say it's Ryan Lee. He plays his deck. I can't remember if he plays it with the Diva package or not, but he's able to do things with this deck that I would definitely put it as a deck to beat. But other people that I've seen play it, it's not, it's good. They've done great with it, but the consistency there just doesn't feel as how do I say this nicely? Doesn't feel as good as it can be. I probably could have phrased that better, but it is what it is. And then let's go ahead and go to Hero Beats. Hero Beat, I think, is still a contender deck. All right. I mean, it's never really topped too much, but it's the same way with Blackwings, to where it's just one of the most consistent decks. A lot of the hands aren't as bricky as people let you on believe. There are very bricky hands in there, but you are able to just play through a lot of the bricks, mainly because you have essentially 4 Stratoses in the deck, because you have, or no, even more, no, 5 Stratoses in the deck, because you have the 3 Ecalls, you have Stratos, and then you also have the reinforcements. So you're almost always guaranteed to get to a monster, and then your deck just starts immediately going off from there. Here's our first Are You Serious? All right, Flambeau Fire Dog. It's an Are You Serious deck. It's a deck that I don't think anyone should really play. It's something that's a lot of fun, but it just, I don't think you're winning any, and especially if you get a really bad matchup like round 1 of a tournament, you're not doing anything with it. You're going into losers bracket where you might be able to do really well, but you get like the next win, and then you play someone good again, and then you kind of just lose. Yeah, and you know what? We're just gonna throw it back down here as well. Are You Serious? Now, okay, I will admit there was someone that did top with this at my locals. All right. No one saw it coming. I think that was the biggest thing, and we all drew like shit. I knew I just got outpaced. I mean, as a quick draw deck, it's very easy to outpace me, and I just wasn't able to get the ball rolling as well as I wanted to. So he eventually just swarmed the field. All right. This also happened to what was it? One of the Diva zombie player he played next, to where he didn't really draw any of the cards that he needed, and he just got outpaced, I believe, in games 1 and games 3. And it was just very steamrolly. This is yet to happen again. All right. Like, this deck definitely can come out of there and steal locals if it's played right, and everyone just draws like shit, like we did. But I think that's the only way this deck is topping. All right. I don't think this deck is good. It was just freak happenstance that this deck actually did really well at one of my locals. All right. It'll never happen again. I promise you. If it does happen again, this next I'll put this deck somewhere else that's not here. Now, for gadgets, needs a good pilot, and for Ancient Gears, that's also tied with it. I think it also needs a good pilot. Both decks suffer from Cyber Dragon being in the format. All right. And Cyber Dragon being at 2, and Fortress Dragon being a thing. All right. So unless you side properly in ways to go ahead and dodge Cyber Dragon, you're probably going to lose games 2 and 3. Like, I think Ancient Gear possibly is a deck to beat, but only if it's best of 1. Because, like, this deck will just game you literally out of nowhere. However, it's games 2 and 3, this deck just plummets down to an Are You Serious? But I'm just going to put it in the middle. If it needs a good pilot, Same thing with gadgets. It needs a good pilot to just go ahead, use it properly, and get your pluses where you need to get your pluses, and push for game when you need to push for game. Lightsworns needs a good pilot. All right, a lot of people in my locals that play this deck. We have a couple loner decks for Lightsworns. People try it, people like it, they continue to play it. We only have one person at my locals that consistently tops with this deck. That's only because he's a sack and he just mills like wolves like crazy, or he mills his guard nut. He just mills what he needs when he needs it, which always just sucks. All right, and he does this in tournament too, which is just, it's it's not like a one-up thing either. It's just this man literally will mill godly every single time. For him, it's a deck to beat. Everyone else, it needs a good pilot. All right, the milling, it hurts when you mill shit that you actually need, and then you don't, and then that's just it. It just sucks. All right, I mean, it is great that you do have Lumina. You do have you have a lot of cards that just go ahead and just give you a bunch of pluses, and you also can run Honest. But it's not a contender unless it's in the right hands. Oh man, this video is getting long. So for the next two, we got Machina decks. I think both of these needs a good pilot. All right, both of these need a good pilot. I do want to put maybe Machina Turbo, or just mainly Machina, like maybe in a contender spot, but I haven't seen it in like outside of like the, what was it, the YCS, the LA YCS in California. I haven't seen this deck. I've seen it online a few times, but outside of that, I never really see it in person, so I don't really have like an accurate assessment of it. But based off of own prior knowledge of it, and at least from the YCS that I did attend, it's a pretty decent deck. And since a lot of decks like run Caius, like Fortress is kind of busted versus that, because you can go ahead and rip a card from their hand. I mean, they can't prepare for it, but if they can't, it kind of sucks. And being able to pop when it's just straight away battle is actually kind of disgusting. But of course, just like these two, they do lose to Cyber Dragon, which kind of sucks. And that's why it probably needs a good pilot, because then you also need to go into your side and have like a side like a chunk of your side dedicated, just like with Gadgets and Ancient Gear. You have to have a chunk of your side dedicated exclusively for Cyber Dragon, which sucks having to like have that in there just for one card. And then if you don't draw them, you're kind of just boned. All right, Quickdraw. I love this deck. I want to put it up here. One of the decks to beat. But it requires a good pilot. Because it just loses out of nowhere to so many decks. Now, I think it's near the top of needs a good pilot, because it does have some good matchups. I mean, us and like me and the Frogs, I feel like I come out on top more often than not. Me versus Blackwings, very tough matchup, but I can do it mainly because I have a good side. I feel versus like Hero Beat, I feel like I plus quite a bit, mainly because Titania is one hell of a card and a lot of their cards target. And then when it comes down to playing a lot of decks to beat, I have beat them. Christia Turbo is probably like my worst matchup, mainly because Christia just doesn't allow me to play the game, which is why I also have a side dedicated to like outing monsters like Christia. So I'm gonna put it in needs a good pilot. Could be a contender, but it requires a good pilot, and I'm constantly having to evolve my deck to kind of read the meta and see where my weak points are in the current meta, where like a lot of these decks really don't need to do that. All right, Macrocosmos decks. You're trolling. All right, they're good decks when like you go against like the right matchups. But if you don't have like the right hand setups to go ahead and protect a lot of your monsters and a lot of your spells and traps, so that way you're able to continue to just constantly keep on banishing. If you don't draw those early enough, you just lose outright. There's been a few people at my locals that have been playing this deck, or variants of it, and all the games that I've won versus them are when I just outpace them because they aren't being able to get adequate protection for their spells, for like Macrocosmos or Defissure or for Banisher or a lot of those cards. They just don't get the proper protection up early enough, and then I just run them over, and then they're playing off the back foot, and then I'm just constantly plussing more and more and more and more, and they eventually just get grinded out, which kind of sucks for those decks because realistically they kind of want to grind you out, and then just getting out grinded by a deck that actually revolves around the graveyard is actually really feels bad for them. Rescue Cat, you're trolling. All right. This deck can game you out of nowhere. I get it. This deck can like rip your hand apart out of nowhere. But consistency wise, it does not happen enough to warrant it being a good pilot deck or a contender deck. Hell, I want to put this deck down here, but just from it being able to just OTK you out of nowhere and like actually do a lot more than both of these decks do, I'll put it in your trolling. All right, I probably should go more on about this, but this video's gone on long enough, and I don't want this to be a 2-hour long video. Now, here's two decks, one of which is the Keegan deck, or whoever first made this deck, the Wella deck. I think it needs a good pilot. And then here's my Wella Jank, Wella Dad Turbo deck, where I think it also needs a very good pilot, but I think it's better than the Wella deck. Now, this could be biased because it's my deck and I'm the one that put it together and like put the cards in there. But at least from testing and like giving people the decks to play, to like try out at locals, or just whenever we're like trying to figure out like cards that we want to, like we're just testing out versus different decks at like we'll do that a lot at my the shop that I normally go to. This one has been outperforming this one quite a bit, which has been very surprising because I honestly thought this was, when I put this one together, I didn't expect it to be that great. It's still not that great, but it has been outpacing, at least in terms of wins, over just regular Wella, which has been kind of surprising and kind of nice. Like, there's still a lot of tweaks I need to do to this deck, but I'm gonna continue to make those as time goes on to try and make the deck a little bit more consistent, but we'll see as time goes. So I think that'll be it for this video. All right, we've gone on for quite a while, and yeah, this is my assessment of the format right now. These are some of the best decks. There are a couple in here that I forgot to put in. The Noryalis deck completely flew over my mind, as well as I think a few others. If I missed the deck, please put them in the comments below. In a couple months, I'll go ahead and do another tier list of it. Then I'll go ahead and refer back to the comment section of this video and go ahead and grab those decks and put them in there if I think like they're actually good enough to be on the video. And yeah, let me know down in the comments below whether you like these, what you would change, what you hate, and don't forget to like and subscribe. All right, thank you guys a bunch. I will see you guys tomorrow for another video, and hopefully I'll see you guys at the RBET this weekend. All right, much love. Deuces.